Welcome to Strategize, the forum to discuss strategy. Today we will dwell upon the question: how will the Russian Ukraine war end? A question that a lot of people are asking, and seeing the current state of stalemate which is there, where gains are being made in meters at horrendous costs like the First World War. This question is very relevant that how will it end and how long will it continue? There is a golden phrase. It says, nothing changes if nothing changes. Therefore, something has to change to break this deadlock. So, what are those changes? Those changes are what I call triggers, event triggers, which will cause certain events to take place and certain outcomes to be generated. We will examine them in detail. But before that, let us dwell upon what are the war gains and what are the two sides looking at. What we see before us is a map of Europe in general, and we zoom on to the area of interest, which is Black Sea, the Crimea Peninsula, Ukraine in green, and Russia in this pink color. Odessa as a port dominating Black Sea. We have Kiev, we have Moscow further up, and we have this Dnipro river, a very crucial river which cuts Ukraine in half, western Ukraine and eastern Ukraine. And along this eastern border is the Donbass, which is ethnic Russian area. So let's see what Russia wants. Russia wants, firstly, in 2014, it had annexed Crimea. It want a formal secession of Crimea to be handed over to it. And similarly, Donbass, which it has recently, this previous year and this year has captured areas of it, it wants that these two should be formally handed over to it. More importantly, Crimea is isolated from Russia, and only connection is at this point, which is a sea bridge called the Kerch Bridge, which Ukraine has shown the capability of destroying with precision ammunition. So Russia crucially needs a land bridge to sustain Crimea. So therefore, other than the Donbass, it also needs a portion of land which allows it to dominate here. So these are three of the essentials that it wants. In addition, it would also like to take over Odessa, and it would like to have a land bridge to Moldova, which is here. Now, if we see this yellow line roughly represents its gains till date in this war, and this red line roughly would represent what it would like to hold. Therefore, you can see it has no interest in Western Ukraine. It wants to expand up to the Dnipro River only for the reason that it does not trust treaties anymore. After the failure of the Minsk treaties, and the German Premier Chancellor Angela Merkel saying that the Minsk treaties were just a subterfuge so that Kiev can arm itself quietly in order to take back Crimea. So, therefore, Russia has no faith in any treaties. It would like to physically have safe borders. So, the Dnipro River logically would be its final objective. And then, of course, uh, that would incorporate both, that is the Donbass, the land bridge, Crimea, as well as Odessa and a land bridge to Moldova. Why Moldova? Because the ethnic Russians are complaining of being marginalized and are suffering because of mistreatment by Moldova, and therefore he would like to have an option to exert his presence there. So these are what Russia desires. What does Ukraine desire is a diametrically opposite of what they want, and hence the war. In addition, they would also like reparations from Russia to rebuild the destroyed city like Merit, like for example, the various cities that Russia has destroyed. We have and continues to destroy as a part of the war. Bakhmut has been leveled to the ground, and the various habitations which the operations have taken place, they almost look like a scene from the Second World War. Coming on to punishment for war crimes, they would also like the killings which took place, alleged killing rather, in the area north of Kiev, which is Bucha, while the Russians had a failed attempt to take Kiev. Uh, they would like the punishment for the alleged war criminals, as well as for smuggling of Ukrainian children in which even Putin himself has been accused and has been sanctioned for being party to that. So therefore, we have seen these views, and it is not in a place where some sort of answer can come out. So something has to change. So what can change? We will see in the next slide. So in this mind map, you can see the various triggers which will cause a change in the status quo. First of all, massive Ukrainian setback, very likely now because Ukraine has utilized its own and the Western provided combat potential. And the combat potential that the Western powers can give is not infinite. Also, foolishly, Ukraine has wasted its combat power defending Bakhmut, and in the process has lost massive amount of equipment and manpower to achieve, and finally it lost Bakhmut also. So suppose this Ukraine has a major setback and its combat power is destroyed. In that case, Russia will take over up to the red line, and the war will come to an end after Russia has achieved its objectives. What in if Russia suffers a setback? Anything is possible in war. In that case, unlikely that it would lead to peace. It would probably lead to escalation because, as was brought out by the French premier, that do not humiliate Putin. A massive Russian setback is a humiliation for Russia in general, and Putin in particular. He would finally stop he's been holding back. He would take the nuclear options. In my opinion, he would take a measured uh, thing that he would take a nuclear test, thereby demonstrating his ability to use nuclear. And if the Western powers realize, they will back off, as you can see here. And with that, the situation will undergo a major change. So we have one trigger causing another trigger, one trigger causing another trigger, leading to the third trigger. In case nukes are used, most probably there'll be tactical nuke against military targets. It is very likely to escalate into a NATO joining with nukes and World War III, a most undesirable option in case people are not wise enough to avoid it. So, therefore, the third bullet or the third trigger is Western support ceases. One reason for withdrawal of Western support we saw is a nuclear test by Russia, what is called escalate to de escalate, the escalation leading to a de escalation. In addition, Western support could also reduce due to several other reasons. Most importantly, slowly, the population of these European countries are realizing that it is a war which they never wanted, and it is affecting their lifestyles. Germany and France have got into deindustrialization because of the high cost of manufacture. The stoppage of gas has led to increase of power bill. Their economies are heading towards recession, and the people are angry. And when people are angry, the leadership cannot toe the line of European Union or NATO. They will be forced to withdraw their support. Other reasons for withdrawal of support could be that the Western powers in Europe in general would realize that they have depleted their own defense potential in supporting Ukraine and now expose themselves to vulnerabilities because China still is a threat on the horizon. So, in that case, they would take the selfish option and withdraw their support or peter it off and make it symbolic. In either case, the withdrawal of the Western support would mean de escalation. Ukraine would be like a robot whose power is switched off, and advantage of Russia, and Russia would advance to the red line, which was there in the previous slide. A less likely, though probable, action is China attacking Taiwan. China taking advantage of the confusion and the way that the Western powers are busy and US is busy with Ukraine, it attacks Taiwan and maybe not takes over entire Taiwan. At least it captures a few islands to put its point across that China is the owner of Taiwan. In that case, most probably it could lead to USA immediately backing off because the priority for USA would be to take on China and Ukraine would become secondary. It leave it to the European allies, and they would back off. All the support they are getting is based on USA's prodding. With USA backing off, Western support will cease, and we will have a Russian victory. Another option or another possibility is that China starts giving open military support to Russia, which so far it has not given. It has just given diplomatic support. In that case, it could lead to two possibilities. First is it could lead to an escalation where, in reply to that, the NATO joins the fray and we have World War III, non nuclear at this stage, but who knows, it escalates beyond that. And second is that there is no reaction and good sense prevails. And finally, the battle runs its course with Ukraine losing and Russia advancing to gain its military objectives. Coming on to personalities, Putin and Zelensky, if they are either killed or they die of natural causes or removed by their governments. Let's see what happens with Putin. It would lead to immediate de-escalation because a lot of the pressure from the Russia is coming from Putin himself because his own personal reputation is at stake. His exiting would also slow down the operation, but it would not mean a cessation. It would mean a frozen conflict. But frozen conflict is not in Russia's favor. We saw the yellow line. It'll be difficult to defend that yellow line, and a lot of manpower would go in, and this war would break out at a later date again. What happens if Zelensky exits, which is very much a possibility? One additional factor is Zelensky might be removed by the Western prodders who are supporting him, his promoters, because he is refusing to negotiate. And Western powers want a face saver. They want a face saver, and they want a frozen conflict, meaning a Korea sort of situation where North and South Korea are separated by a demilitarized zone. So therefore, the Western powers would like to exit from this losing game by freezing this conflict. That who is where sits there, but Zelensky will not agree to a loss of an inch of territory. So therefore, he might be removed by some means. His exit would bring confusion and de escalation because everything is centered around his personality. He does not have a succession line in place. His military would be greatly demoralized, and again, advantage Russia. Of course, last and least is the above are probable causes with varying degrees of possibilities and probabilities, but you can never forget they could be black swan events, unforeseen things which leave massive disruptive effect on the situation. Unknown events could be, to name a few, Zaporizhia nuclear plant getting blown up deliberately, accidentally, or due to cutoff of the power supply, causing the fuel rods to heat up and go supercritical. It could be the frequent prodding by Ukraine on Russian territory recently in the last few days may cause Russia to take the nuclear option as per their constitution. Whenever Russian territory is under attack, they are free to use nuclear options or any other event which could cause disruptions. It will of course have an unknown effect which we cannot quantify at this stage, but at a later stage it will become clear. So with this, these are some of the triggers that I think will cause a definite end to this victory, and it seems to be largely in Russian uh, favor. However, time will tell. Please feel free to either agree, disagree, comment, and let's observe for these triggers and see where they take us and what are the outcomes which come out of them. Thank you and Jai Hind.